irresponsible and selfish behavior.
I don't want to promote this goddamn game.
The booze is still important, yeah.
I couldn't accept being a human, I just wanted to be perfect.
I believe in heaven and hell, and I'm very scared of being damned.
He was probably one of the first players to just be like, he'd dribble through anyone from anywhere. He'd just take it on the wing, be in the centre, and he'd just go past people. And then obviously the composure to finish it off and score so many goals. And I think he's one of the first wingers that you got, like Cristiano Ronaldo at the moment, is that kind of player. But it was before that was a regular thing that you saw. The goal he scored against Spurs was players you'd think would just aim low, smash it, but he touches it down and loops it over multiple defenders and the goalkeeper and into the net, and I think that's just kind of shows the genius that he was.
What do you think of Gaza, for instance?
I think he's a very talented player, but he's not in the same class as me.
I think Wood's been an inspiration virtually to everyone who plays golf, and I think he's had a massive influence on the game. Of course, he was just a sublime golfer, so his influence on the game as he came completely to dominate it for a period of years until his recent setbacks was immense, and I think he had an effect on everyone who plays golf, who followed him with incredible interest and admiration.
Vern, this is extremely difficult. This is one of the toughest pitches on the entire place here. A lot tougher by having that second cut right behind the ball.
Well, here it comes. Oh my goodness.
Major grimace of the day comes at the second for Tiger, who has been using his clubs as a cane.
Those injuries are, very problematic for a golfer because, the golf swing is a rotary motion, which requires a rotation of the knee and, of course, of the back as well. So if you're not swinging completely freely, that's a huge handicap.
8-iron from 185.
He's hit it very high, and he's shaping it right to left, but this is just right of the hole.
How about stiff? What a shot. Wow, that's a beauty.
I'm glad I'm done. I'm done.
Had he kept going winning majors at the rate he did, he would certainly have overtaken Nicklaus some time ago. I think Nicklaus had 18, Woods had 14, and he hasn't won one for the best part of 10 years. So had he not had his personal and physical breakdowns, he'd probably be on about 20 or 25 by now and still marching on.
I think there's almost a sort of a false dichotomy there between, on the one hand, sporting greatness, and on the other hand, flaws. I think you can be a sporting great without having very noticeable flaws. I think you can be very flawed as a sports person without being a genius. Where you get the two, you know, and you think about the famous examples of Maradona or Tiger Woods, when you get flaws and genius, it's an explosive combination, and it will probably lead to someone being brilliant for just a few years in their lives and then not fulfilling their potential for the rest of their career. So I think that I think again there's a myth about this. Without having flaws, we've seen so many great sports people achieve a lot. You know, Bjorn Borg, Ivan Lendl. These aren't obvious flaws in terms of something that will affect their sport, but they've probably had to sacrifice something in terms of emotional expression, in terms of their lifestyle. They've probably had to, you know, not have a social life for sort of 10 years, and they've made a sacrifice. The likes of George Best, Paul Gascoigne, Maradona, Tiger Woods weren't able to make that sacrifice. In the end, they wanted to enjoy their lives and be a sporting genius, and very often the two don't seem to go together.
Well, I was free. People would teach me a card game that I never played, and 2 days later I'd be better than them at a card game they were playing for 30 years. But it was a freak of nature.
Stu Unger was a genius in the truest sense of the word, in that his IQ was of a genius level, he had a photographic memory, and as a result of this he was banned from playing blackjack in every casino in Las Vegas. He won over $1 million playing blackjack at those casinos. He started out playing a game called Gin Rummy. He took on the best players he could find for money, and one guy, Harry Stein, came to play him. He was known as one of the best players around, and Stu Unger beat him 86 games to 0. It was then that he came to Las Vegas and decided to turn his hand to poker. And the second tournament Stu Unger ever played at poker was the Poker World Championship in 1980. 73 players paid $10,000 to enter, and Stu Unger won. And then he came back in 1981, 75 players that time, and he won. So that was back-to-back world titles. He was the youngest ever main event champion. He won a little under $400,000 each time, which in 1980 was an incredible sum of money. In 1990, Stu Unger had a big chip lead in the World Series of Poker main event. He was a big favourite to win at that point. He had a commanding position over the table, and but play was paused with a sort of 20 or 25 players left, I think, and they all had to go back to their rooms for the night and then come back to play the tournament out the following day. Stu Unger, of course, went to his room, got lots of cocaine in, and sadly had an overdose and had to be taken to hospital. So he didn't show up to play the following day, and his stack was slowly sort of worn down. And he ended up finishing 9th place, I think, and won prize money for a 9th place finish, even though he wasn't sat at his chair the whole day because he was in hospital and they wouldn't let him out.
Bobby Fischer was one of those who brought most novelties and new ideas and brilliant playing. He also did very much for chess as a professional sport. He was one of the greatest.
Bobby Fischer's a strange man. People think that there's something wrong with the man.
opening theory was of course important. It's still important today, but chess is so rich, and many grandmasters, also Bobby Fischer, he was completely okay with just starting to play chess, get out of the theory, play chess, and make the best moves on the board. Fischer is one player who brought very much new ideas into the game, and he was way ahead of his time when he was on top. And yes, of course a genius, and what often follows being a genius. There is ups and downs there also. He had many ups on the chessboard in his personal life. Outside the chessboard, he had many downs. Chess is often a reflection of the society, art, culture, politics, and it was a very important part for the Soviet Union to have the world champion title, because that show that we are superior on this area. We did the art or the cultural thing. When they lost it, it was not a very nice experience for them, and that was the turning point of Bobby Fischer's mental health.
Tiempo. Spassky 1, Fischer 0.
He said e4, best by test, is his best opening moves. Bobby Fischer was playing one c4 against Spassky. Spassky had never lost against c4. He had a good score against c4. Still, Bobby Fischer played it, and he won the game.
Nothing healthy at all about wanting to be an elite athlete. It's a form of madness. You have to want to win. I think that's the most important thing. And lots of people do that by being interested in crushing their opponent. And other people do it in a different way, and that different way is about crushing themselves. So the idea being that they're just trying to go as fast as they possibly can, and they're trying to get over the line as fast as they can, and it's all about them. It's not absolutely necessary to play in a way that means that you're trying to crush your opponent at all. I think it's probably easier to train people who are like that up to a point, and then they get too wrapped up with trying to do the other guy or do the other person that they forget what they're there to do. Most of us don't have the neurosis that makes us want to win the Olympics. So anybody that does is different, for sure. And that makes them susceptible to all sorts of things. I don't think it's necessarily the case, but I think it often can be. But it's a piece of a jigsaw. I mean, there's lots of other things about the whole enterprise that are likely to, not be very good for you, I think.
Ronnie O'Sullivan, he's very special, but he has had his ups and downs, and I would say he's an entertainer sort of thing.
Yeah.
He's probably one of the best players on the circuit, because he's so good left and right-handed because he's ambidextrous and he can play with both hands. He rarely has to use the rest. He's a very good player, and I like to watch him because he's an entertainer. You know, and the crowd love him. You know, if they hear it's Ronnie O'Sullivan, the Rocket, Ronnie O'Sullivan, they go mad about him. And, you know, he gets annoyed with himself when he breaks down and he's sitting in a chair and the other person's playing and potting the balls. You look at his facial features and it changes and you think, oh God, the poor bloke. He goes through stages where he just doesn't care about snooker. He just goes through that stage and that's his mental block. He goes through a stage where he thinks, I can't be asked to do this. You know, I don't want to know. He gets involved with some of the referees and he gets involved with some of the hierarchy in snooker sort of thing. And he says, I don't want to know this. O'Sullivan will be remembered for his antics in and out of the game because he's such a character, you know, and he's going to be remembered for it for a long, long time, you know, and he really is very, very good. I mean, he can play snooker like there's nobody else in the world. You know, he puts the ball as if it's like he picks it up and puts it somewhere. You know, he's so good.
This is even more difficult. What an effort. What an effort this is. This could be one of the great escapes. Absolutely incredible. Oh, this is one way of getting on the red. Never thought about that one. Never thought about... 32.